So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions, one of the best wide formations in FIFA 23, this being the 4-2-4. But just before we get started guys, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop a thumbs up. It's time for shapeshifters, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a very nice 5% discount. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics for the defensive star, I do like to have this on balanced. This is because it gives me the greatest control over the defense, where when I need to press, I'm able to press, and then when I want to drop off, be a little bit more passive, I can do that as well. The other settings are a little bit restricted, a little bit one-dimensional, which is why I personally don't like to use them all that much, and is why I do settle to used balance. Moving on to the width guys, I like to have this on 35. This is so I can primarily defend in a nice narrow and compact shape, which will stop all those attacks through the middle of the pitch, so our opponent won't just be able to run right through us. But it's important not to lower the width too much, because it's important to maintain some of the natural width to cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. That is the main reason we don't want to have the width too low. Now moving on to the depth guys, I like to have this on 61, not really a specific number. It wouldn't really make much of a difference from like 59 to like 63 or whatever, but I just have it on 61, and the reason for this is so I can win the ball a bit higher up the pitch, but my defensive line isn't crazy high to the point where one through ball will always destroy me. I don't want to have my depth too low because it feels like you just get pinned back too much and you're always under a lot of pressure, which is not ideal, which is why I do prefer to have a bit of a higher depth, so it's high but not too high. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I like to have this on balance. This is because I find it to be the most varied, the most consistent, and the most balanced of course. Now the thing I do like about having it on balanced is you can play quickly when you want to play quickly, and then you can also slow it down when you want to play a bit slower, so you can really pick and choose when you use which style in the game. For example, using something like fast build-up, you're always going to have to play quickly. With slow build-up, you're always going to have to play slowly, but with balance you could play slowly and then switch up to play a bit faster. You know, you can really pick and choose when and where you use which type of build-up. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it's by far the most meta option in the game. Basically when you use direct passing, your attacking players will like bunch up against the defenders, so you can do the very overpowered 1v1 isolation plays to create the best chances. Players will also make those extra movements in the box so you can get off that extra pass to guarantee the goals. Direct passing is super important for this reason and is why I suggest it so highly. Moving on to the attacking width guys, I like to have this on about 52 at the moment. The reason for this is the 4-2-4 is obviously a bit of a wider formation because of the wingers, so it wouldn't make sense for us to have like a crazy low width, otherwise it becomes more like a 4-2-2. So you do kind of want to use like the width where you can, but I think it's important not to go overboard with the width to the point where your players are just way too spread apart, because then it actually does more harm than good. So I kind of like to go for something like 52 where it's still nice and wide, but it's not too wide at the same time. Moving on to the players in the box guys, I have this on 4. This is so we can get a few players into the box for those chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where one counter attack absolutely destroys us. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, I'm just going to give some suggestions on each position, because a lot of people ask which types of players they should be using in which position in certain formations, so I thought I'd just give you my basic guidelines for the positions. It's not something you have to use, but it's just something you could follow if you are struggling. So starting off with the two strikers, what I like to do is go for a bit of a balance between the two strikers. So I like to have one more creative player in one of the positions, that being Havertz, then a more clinical finisher or a poacher in the other position, somebody that is always going to finish off all those chances. So we've got a bit of a creative finisher dynamic going on there. The reason I don't like going for two out and out finishers is because it restricts your attack too much, because those players are only capable of really finishing off the chances. They're not really able to dribble or contribute much to like build up play and stuff like that, so it does restrict your attack. But when you implement a more attacking player into the lineup, it does make it a lot easier to actually be more varied in your attack. Now moving on to the right winger and the left winger, you just need to use the best wingers possible. Again, this is really self-explanatory. You just need to use players that are very quick, have good dribbling ability, players that can skill if you need them to, players that can pass and even shoot, because these players do end up in the penalty box a lot of the times. You really don't have to worry about their defensive stats though. That is just an added bonus if you can get them, but just focus on getting really nice attackers here. Moving on to the two centre mids, I like to go for a balance between the two. So in the left centre mid spot, I go for a more defensive minded midfielder. This is somebody that is going to stay back and be as defensive as possible to make us nice and solid. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defence and they're not too bothered about going forward. Moving on to the right centre mid, I like to use a more box to box style player. This is somebody that will attack and defend, so I would suggest somebody with a high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in both the attack and defense. But I'll just ensure that this player has a nice well-rounded card so that they're capable of doing a bit of everything. Moving on to the fullbacks, I like to go for a bit of a balance between the two. So my left back's a bit more technical, a bit better on the ball, but my right back's a bit more defensive, a bit more solid, but maybe not as good on the ball. That's just something I like to do, but you guys could use two attacking fullbacks or two defensive fullbacks if you like. As for the two centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be the meta players. There's really not too much to say about them. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, on my more creative striker, I like to have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because it's important for this player to not go drifting out super wide, because he is one of the strikers and we do need him to be in the correct positions. If he's out wide, he's not going to be in the correct position where we want him to be, so we do want him to stay central so he's always in the correct position. We also have him on mixed attack as he is a bit more of a creative player at times, so we don't just want to limit him to making those runs in behind, because that's not just his job. If you have him on mixed attack, he gets more involved in the build-up and you just get a lot more out of him that way, and it does make attacking a lot easier in my opinion. Moving on to the right striker, where I use a more poacher striker, I have him on stay central for the same reasons as the left striker, but I also have him on getting behind. This is because this player is meant to finish off all those chances, so we do want him to actually be making those runs in behind to get the best chances possible. Now for the right winger and the left winger, I just have them on comeback on defense. Now the reason I do this is because it makes this formation defend in a 4-4-2. So the 4-2-4 is obviously a pretty good attacking formation, but if you lose the ball, it's not too solid because you've only got two midfielders when you are defending. But when you put these left wingers and the right wingers on comeback on defense, they'll come back to defend as a left mid and a right mid in the 4-4-2 shape. This means we're going to be very good in attack in the 4-2-4 shape, but then when we don't have the ball, we're going to transition back into a 4-4-2 to make us solid defensively as well. I don't really restrict their other instructions though, because I kind of want them to pick and choose when they do whatever. I don't want to limit them to certain things like cut inside or stay wide, so I kind of just let them do their own thing in that respect. Moving on to the left centre mid, the more defensive minded player, I have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. We have him on stay back so he does defend, like we don't want him to go forward at all. He's always going to be back, so you know we've got that coverage there. And then we also have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2. Moving on to the right centre mid, the more box to box player, we have him on the default settings and cover centre. We have him on the default settings because he is a box to box player. His job is to do a bit of everything, so we don't really want to restrict him all that much. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Now moving on to the left back and the right back, I have them both on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have them on stay back so we're as defensively sound as possible, so we've always got our back four intact, which means it's going to be difficult for our opponent to just counter attack us all the time. We also have them on the overlap run type, so when we do send them on a run forward, they'll make the overlapping runs to add extra width. If you're feeling extra confident, you can put one of your fullbacks on balanced attack if you want, but I suggest just leaving them on stay back for now. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-2-4. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.